Yesterday was a strange day for me. I went up to Georgetown, about an hour away from our office in Toronto. I went to watch Liberals say, wow, about Mark Carney. Some of the Liberals were nice, some weren't so nice, and some were just a bit over the top, like, I mean, he's a kid, but look at this kid.
My boy here is excited to meet the Prime Minister.
Yes, I'm really excited.
And why are you excited to meet him?
Because I've never had an opportunity like this before, and I'm just really excited to meet him.
And what will you say to him if you meet him?
Just welcome to Georgetown.
Are you from around here?
Yeah.
And what are you hoping that he does as a Prime Minister?
Everything that we were asking for.
Yeah. Are you a student in school? What grade are you in?
I'm in grade 6.
Oh, yeah. Well, good for you for coming to a political event. Is that your dad or your grandpa? Okay, well, good luck. Now, if you look at the polls, it's mainly baby boomers who love Mark Carney. I get it. You already own your house. You probably paid off the mortgage a long time ago. Super high housing prices are a good thing for you. When you sell and downsize, you'll get a lot of money. You're not working anymore, so you're not competing against literally millions of foreign workers. So the system is working for you. The last 10 years haven't been a problem for you. You're not still living at home with your parents because you can't buy a house. Maybe your kids are living with you, and maybe you secretly like that. Mark Carney looks like a central casting version of what a prime minister is supposed to look like. And if he's anything, he's boring, as you'd expect a banker to be, and boring is good. Boring is camouflage, actually, hiding extreme ideas. But you're a boomer, and frankly, that Pierre Poilievre seems a bit uppity, a bit cranky, a bit combative, a bit too much like Trump, maybe. And when Trump talks about annexing Canada, you believe that maybe he means it militarily, even though he hasn't said so. In fact, he's said the opposite when asked. But he's just mean. And because you're a boomer, you actually studied our history and our culture in school before all that was wiped out. Maybe your school was even called something like the Sir John A. Macdonald School before he was stripped off of our $10 bills. You grew up loving Canada before Trudeau said we had committed a genocide. So of course your love for Canada, your patriotism, would be pricked by Donald Trump saying he wants us. I mean, good for you. You're patriotic and nationalistic. Mark Carney isn't, by the way. He's the definition of a globalist. Someone with 3 passports, someone who calls himself a European. He's loyal to nobody. He has a home in New York. He has a home in London, and he has a home, I think, in Geneva. Here, watch this clip.
Your ministers have been telling me for more than a year that a Poilievre government wouldn't be focused on the issue of reconciliation. Yet you're here in Winnipeg, which is a majorly Indigenous city, with no policy announcement for Indigenous people, no public meetings with them. What does that signal about the Liberal Party's stance on reconciliation with Indigenous people?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I'll say a couple of things, if I may. The first, in my opening comments as Prime Minister on the day that I was sworn in, acknowledged the fundamental role of First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples to the founding of our country. Within 2.5 days, I was in Iqaluit with the Premier and meeting First Nations. The Inuit people and the Métis.
You could tell that he hasn't been following Canadian news for a decade. He didn't know the word Inuit. He thought Inuit were First Nations. They're not. He's talking about the far north when he was asked about Winnipeg. I bet if you asked him a question point blank like, will you reintroduce Bill 63? If you said just those words to him, he literally would have no idea what you're talking about because he hasn't been here in a decade. He hasn't been following things. He hasn't thought about us. I'm not saying ordinary Canadians have to know what Bill C-63 is. It's the online harm censorship bill. But my point is that Mark Carney hasn't been thinking about Canada until about 5 minutes ago. I'm sure his driver's license is a British driver's license. I'm sure his health card is the British NHS. So yeah, if you're supporting Mark Carney because of his patriotism, you're being tricked. He's like one of those phone scammers or Nigerian princes. He preys on boomers and seniors. And I've said before, asking Canadians to join America is a bit of an indecent proposal, like that movie of the same name featuring Demi Moore and Woody Harrelson as his wife and husband and Robert Redford making the indecent proposal to them. It's rude and it's shocking to people who are in a happy relationship. But what if you're not in a happy relationship? What if you're not in a happy boomer with your house paid off and your car paid off, just enjoying life? What if you're young and have no chance to move up? What if you're an entire province that's so obviously the whipping boy for Confederation? Here's Mark Carney talking about Alberta and Bill C-69, the bill that basically stops Alberta from getting its oil to market.
How do you reconcile keeping Bill C-69 with your plans to build infrastructure in Canada? Do you plan to repeal Bill C-69?
We do not plan to repeal Bill C-69, to answer your question directly. What we have said and made very clear 10 days ago, formally with the First Minister's meeting, is that we will move for projects of national interest to remove duplication in terms of environmental assessments and other approvals, and we will follow, as the federal government, the principle of one project, one approval to move forward from that. And so what's essential is to work at this time of crisis to come together as a nation, all levels of government, to focus on those projects that are going to make material differences to our country, to Canadian workers, and to our future.
We don't know what else Mark Carney owns. Is he a competitor to the oil sands? Has he bought or bet big on contrary technologies that he needs the oil sands to go away? He hasn't disclosed his holdings. He hasn't sold them either, which is weird. He's still thinking about going back to Brookfield maybe, or maybe if things don't work out, he'll go back to London or New York. Assume the worst, I think. He's hired the worst of Trudeau's team. And even Trudeau possibly would not have kept that candidate Paul Chiang around after he threatened a hit on a rival conservative Chinese Canadian who happens to be for democracy in Hong Kong. But back to my point, we know who is happy in Canada. Boomers, liberals, environmentalists, globalists, criminals are having a lovely time. Migrants are here by the million. Woke activists are loving it. But who's unhappy? Well, Albertans, many young people, young men in particular, the oil and gas sector for sure. And so let me play for you a video that is quite calm in its tone, but quite dramatic in its meaning. Take a look at this from the Alberta Premier, Danielle Smith.
What would you say to those who criticize you for sort of entertaining the idea of Alberta independence as Canada faces a trade war and threats of annexation from the U.S.?
Well, I love Canada, and I want Canada to work. I've been on Team Canada from the beginning. It's part of the reason why I've been relentlessly going to the United States and trying to advocate for all of our industries, for all of Canada, in every venue I possibly can. But I'm also Premier of Alberta, and quite frankly, at some point, Canada has to start working for Alberta, and it's not right now. We have a number of policies that came in over the last 10 years that have been damaging to Alberta prosperity. It's been damaging to our freedom as a province, and if they persist, it is going to continue a dysfunctional relationship that harms Alberta. So I put forward the 9 major policies that I think have to be repealed after the next election. Unfortunately, the current Prime Minister, despite what he said to me privately when he was here, has now gone public saying he supports export taxes, he supports Bill C-69, he supports emissions caps. That is moving in the wrong direction. So we will get through this election, we'll see who ends up winning, and I will continue to advocate for those. And that's part of the reason why I will do a What's Next panel. We did that when when my predecessor came in to hear some of the concerns that Albertans had about how to repair the relationship with Canada at that time, and it'll be time for us to do it again.
Now that's not square one in an independence project. It's more like square zero. And if Pierre Poilievre wins and the insanity of Trudeau and Carney recedes, and Carney goes back to New York or London or wherever, I don't think independence will go anywhere. But if Mark Carney and Stephen Guilbeault, his extremist advisor, win, I think the province of Alberta will express itself and the Toronto-based media will gnash its teeth. The CBC will go to war against Danielle Smith even more than they already do. The entire province will be defamed and attacked. We took a poll the other day, and the number of Albertans who wanted to join the United States was still pretty small, less than 20%. We specifically asked the U.S. version of the question, not independence or something else, just joining the states. But I promise you, if Mark Carney wins, that number will jump. And if Danielle Smith gives it life by talking about it, it'll really jump. And all that needs to happen, because the precedent has been set with Quebec. All that needs to happen, according to our Supreme Court, according to the Clarity Act, is that a clear result in a referendum with a clear question happened, and Alberta's gone. And that'll make many people happy, people who hate wealth and hate oil and hate capitalism. They'll be glad Alberta's gone. At least they'll say they are. But I suspect in the end, if Alberta leaves, it'll make many people sad when they no longer have Alberta to push around, to tax, to take equalization payments from. And if Alberta goes, Saskatchewan will go soon, maybe British Columbia and the North. Is it true that electing Mark Carney could literally spell the end of Canada through a chain reaction like that? Maybe not. Probably not. But just maybe it would.